She believed she had come to restore an old painting, never imagining that the figures within it would begin to awaken. Set in Italy in 1993, the story centers on Lisa, a talented American art conservator who travels abroad after accepting an important restoration assignment. During her bus ride to the small village of Sambuchi, she meets 3 fellow passengers, Tracy, Madison, and a tour guide named Tony. Seated close together, they quickly strike up a conversation and introduce themselves. Lisa is relieved to discover that they all speak English, as she doesn't know any Italian. Their friendly discussion continues throughout the trip, until they realize they are all traveling to the very same village. Since they immediately get along, they decide to meet again after finishing their individual plans. By the time they reach Sambuchi, night has already fallen. Because the events take place in 1993, the village feels peaceful, old-fashioned, and completely different from the fast-paced atmosphere of a modern city. Since Lisa has arranged separate accommodations, she temporarily says goodbye to Tracy, Madison, and Tony. The next morning, Lisa intends to continue her journey by bus. After standing at the stop for quite some time without seeing a single vehicle, a local man named Marcus approaches her. He explains that public buses stopped servicing that route long ago. Once Marcus learns where Lisa is headed, he realizes it's close to his workplace and kindly offers her a ride. During the drive, the two become more familiar with each other. Marcus tells Lisa that she has been hired by a wealthy woman named Emma Malvizi. He also mentions that he owns a bar, located directly across from the Malvizi estate. According to Marcus, Emma has earned a reputation as a generous and respected member of the community. Not long afterward, Lisa arrives at the magnificent Malvizi mansion, where she finally meets Emma, the woman who brought her to Italy for the restoration project. Since Lisa is the daughter of a renowned art restoration specialist, Emma has complete confidence in her skills. Emma then reveals the true reason for Lisa's visit: a massive, centuries-old painting that has suffered extensive damage. Thick, black soot from a fireplace fire covers nearly the entire surface. Fortunately, although the painting appears badly stained, the canvas itself remains largely intact, meaning it can still be restored. Emma explains that the artwork dates back to the 1500s and is worth an enormous amount of money. After carefully inspecting it, Lisa estimates that restoring it properly will require about a month. However, Emma insists the painting must be finished much sooner because it is scheduled for an upcoming auction. Instead of 4 weeks, Lisa is given only 2 weeks to complete the restoration. The tight deadline places Lisa under tremendous pressure, but having already accepted the assignment, she is determined to finish it on time. Without any delay, she immediately begins working. To most people, her job would simply look like removing layers of dirt from an old painting. In reality, art restoration demands remarkable patience, precision, and expertise, and Lisa is considered one of the finest professionals in the field. As the hours pass, more of the original artwork slowly appears beneath the dark layer of soot. While completely focused on her work, Lisa is suddenly interrupted by the sound of someone singing somewhere inside the mansion. Curious, she follows the beautiful voice until she spots a young girl standing on a balcony. But the moment Lisa attempts to approach her, the mysterious girl quietly turns around and disappears without saying a single word. Meanwhile, in another part of the area, Tony, Tracy, and Madison spend the night camping deep inside a forest. Passionate about recording natural sounds, Tony sets up his audio equipment and listens through his headphones. In the stillness of the night, he picks up a strange noise that immediately captures his attention. Curious to investigate, he heads toward the microphone he had placed earlier. Moments later, a terrifying scream echoes through the forest, instantly waking Madison and Tracy. When Madison realizes Tony is no longer inside his tent, he wastes no time searching the surrounding woods. Rather than finding Tony, Madison comes across his blood-soaked hat. Realizing something is horribly wrong, she rushes back toward the campsite. Before she has a chance to react, however, an unidentified attacker suddenly ambushes both her and Tracy. Sometime later, Madison regains consciousness inside a filthy, damp prison cell. She quickly realizes she isn't the only captive. Tracy, Tony, and another prisoner named Rocco are also being held there. each confined in separate cells sealed behind heavy iron doors. Back at the Malvizi mansion, Lisa completes her first day of restoration work. Emma arrives to check on the painting's progress. After examining the restored sections, she appears satisfied and becomes even more confident that Lisa can finish everything before the deadline. During their conversation, Lisa brings up the young girl she saw singing on the balcony. Emma explains that the girl is her daughter, Julia, and says she is incredibly shy and uncomfortable around unfamiliar people. Later that evening, Lisa shares dinner with Emma and Julia. Throughout the meal, Emma remains warm and welcoming, spending most of the conversation discussing the restoration project. Julia, on the other hand, barely speaks and quietly keeps to herself. Hoping to make her feel more comfortable, Lisa asks about her education. Instead of responding, Julia suddenly gets up and leaves the table without saying a single word. Noticing Lisa's confusion, Emma explains that Julia suffers from a serious personality disorder, which eventually forced her to stop attending school. Respecting their family's privacy, Lisa decides not to ask any further questions and heads to bed early so she can continue working the next morning. Meanwhile, far beneath an old structure resembling an underground dungeon, Madison, Tracy, Tony, and Rocco remain imprisoned inside their individual cells. Before long, a man enters the chamber. He behaves in an unsettling way, almost as if he's being controlled by an unseen force. Since the film never reveals his name, we'll refer to him as John. At the center of the prison stands an ancient well, positioned between the rows of cells. As John walks toward it, Tony repeatedly begs to be set free, shouting at the top of his lungs. John pays no attention to him and calmly continues with his routine. He lowers a bucket into the well, yet strangely, there is no sound of water at all. Even so, after a few moments, he slowly pulls the bucket back to the surface. Tony's relentless yelling eventually pushes John too far. In a desperate attempt to survive, Tony lunges at him and tries to fight back. Unfortunately, he is no match for John's overwhelming strength. John quickly subdues him, beating him mercilessly until he is completely unable to resist. Once Tony has been subdued, John throws him directly into the well at the center of the chamber. Even after the fall, the remaining prisoners continue hearing Tony's terrified screams echoing from deep below, confirming that he was still alive when he was cast into the darkness. After John leaves, Madison learns that Rocco has discovered a narrow drainage tunnel hidden inside his cell. It seems to be their only possible route out of the terrifying prison. Unfortunately, the entrance is blocked by thick iron bars that cannot be pulled loose by hand. Rocco has already been trying to find a way through them, but without any tools, he has made almost no progress. Understanding what needs to be done, Madison throws her folding knife toward Rocco. After catching it, he immediately begins cutting and scraping at the metal bars little by little. The work is painfully slow because the iron is incredibly strong, but he refuses to give up. With no better option available, he can only hope that persistence will eventually create an opening large enough for everyone to escape. The following morning, Lisa resumes restoring the centuries-old painting belonging to the Malvizi family. As Lisa continues removing the thick layer of soot, the terrifying figure hidden at the center of the painting gradually becomes more visible. While carefully working, she is suddenly startled by a piercing scream, causing her to accidentally slice her finger. Despite the injury, she ignores the pain and continues restoring the artwork until evening. Not long afterward, a storm rolls in and the mansion suddenly loses electricity. Surrounded by darkness and silence, Lisa notices a man standing nearby. To her shock, she recognizes him as her father. Confused, she stares at him, knowing he should not possibly be there. The figure looks directly at her and coldly says that he never should have trusted her. Seconds later, he horrifically slashes his own throat. Fortunately, Lisa soon realizes the terrifying scene was nothing more than a disturbing hallucination. That night, she finally goes to bed, hoping to get some sleep. During the night, she dreams of a bald woman violently choking her, before suddenly jolting awake in terror. What frightens her even more is the realization that the woman from her nightmare is the exact same figure portrayed in the painting she has been restoring. From that moment on, Lisa becomes convinced that there is something deeply unnatural about the artwork. Her fears grow even stronger when Julia secretly approaches her. The young girl urgently tells Lisa to leave the mansion before it's too late, insisting that the painting is cursed. Julia explains that the bald woman depicted in the painting and the same woman haunting Lisa's dreams is a witch named Dorka. Naturally, Lisa has trouble believing such an unbelievable story. She asks Julia how she knows all of this, but the girl refuses to answer. Instead, she simply warns Lisa that continuing the restoration will only bring regret, before quietly walking away. Feeling increasingly disturbed by everything happening around her, Lisa later visits Marcus's bar, hoping to clear her thoughts. She tells him about the nightmares, the strange visions, and the unsettling experiences that have followed her ever since she began restoring the painting. Marcus, however, dismisses her concerns, suggesting that exhaustion and stress are playing tricks on her mind. He reassures her that nothing supernatural is happening, and reminds her that she only has to stay for another 2 weeks. Meanwhile, deep inside the underground prison, John returns to the ancient well to perform his usual ritual. This time, however, the prisoners notice something unusual. The rope attached to John's bucket is clearly too short to reach the bottom, making it impossible for him to be drawing water from the well. Their suspicions are confirmed moments later. Instead of water, a pale hand slowly rises out of the darkness below. The mysterious figure deliberately cuts its own hand, allowing blood to drip into the bucket. John silently collects the blood without showing the slightest emotion. At that moment, the prisoners realize that whatever exists at the bottom of the well requires blood to complete some horrifying ritual. But blood alone is not enough. Every time the ritual is performed, the creature also demands a human sacrifice. This time, John chooses Rocco as the next victim, realizing that Rocco is their only real chance of escaping and finding help. Madison quickly devises a desperate plan. She intentionally provokes John until he loses his temper and changes his decision. Her plan succeeds, but at a terrible cost. John decides that Madison herself will become the next sacrifice. She is mercilessly beaten and tortured until she is no longer capable of resisting. Although she is still alive, John eventually throws her into the well. Now only Tracy and Rocco remain imprisoned. At the bottom of the well, Madison discovers countless human skulls scattered across the ground, horrifying proof that many others have met the same fate before her. Moments later, a monstrous creature slowly emerges from the darkness and approaches her. Trapped with nowhere to escape, Madison meets a tragic end as she becomes the monster's latest victim. The following day, Lisa searches for Julia again, determined to learn more about the warning she received concerning the painting. Eventually, she finds Julia quietly watching a young couple spending time together. Oddly enough, tears are streaming down Julia's face as she watches them. Seeing how upset she is, Lisa tries to comfort her, assuring her that one day she will be able to experience that same kind of happiness. Instead of feeling encouraged, however, Julia becomes even more heartbroken. Realizing the girl is hiding something important, Lisa once again asks what is really going on. Julia sadly replies that she is destined to remain alone forever and says her mother is responsible for it. Unfortunately, before she can reveal anything else, Emma suddenly appears. Her arrival immediately cuts the conversation short, making it obvious that she does not want Lisa and Julia speaking privately. When Lisa mentions Julia's claims about the cursed painting, Emma quickly brushes the story aside. She insists that everything Julia said is simply part of her imagination, and explains that these fantasies are one of the reasons her daughter has never been able to live a normal life like other girls her age. Emma urges Lisa to stop dwelling on frightening stories and concentrate on finishing the restoration. She reminds her that the contract she signed includes severe financial penalties if the project isn't completed on schedule, making it clear that missing the deadline could be financially devastating. That night, after another exhausting day of work, Lisa returns to her room, hoping to finally get some sleep. Instead, the disturbing visions begin once again. She suddenly wakes in the middle of the night to see Tracy pushing Tony in a wheelchair. Tony appears horribly wounded, while Tracy desperately pleads with Lisa to save him. The scene feels so vivid that Lisa panics, only to realize moments later that it was yet another terrifying nightmare. Unable to fall asleep again, Lisa goes to visit Marcus. She openly tells him about the disturbing visions, nightmares, and bizarre incidents that have haunted her ever since she started restoring the painting. She admits that she is genuinely frightened and wants to leave the mansion. Unfortunately, walking away isn't a realistic option because breaking the contract would trigger financial penalties large enough to ruin both her restoration business and her studio. After listening to her concerns, Marcus once again tries to reassure her. He insists that nothing unusual has ever happened in the area and believes that stress, exhaustion, and the pressure of the restoration are causing her to imagine these frightening experiences. He encourages Lisa to finish the project as quickly as possible so she can finally leave, rest, and put the entire ordeal behind her. Following their conversation, Lisa returns to the Malvizi mansion, determined to complete the painting without any further delays. To keep herself awake, she even takes medication to fight off exhaustion and continue working through the night. While inside the bathroom, Lisa suddenly hears the sound of someone crying. She follows the noise and is horrified to discover Madison lying inside the bathtub in a gruesome state.
The shocking sight causes Lisa to scream uncontrollably, prompting Emma to rush into the room. Instead of showing concern for Lisa's emotional state, Emma focuses entirely on the restoration, complaining that the work is progressing too slowly. Overwhelmed by everything that has happened, Lisa finally confesses that she cannot endure another moment inside the mansion. Even so, Emma refuses to let her leave. She coldly warns Lisa that failing to finish the restoration before the deadline will have consequences she will deeply regret. Meanwhile, back in the underground prison, Tracy and Rocco are the only survivors left alive. After secretly working on it for several days, Rocco finally succeeds in removing the barrier covering the drainage tunnel hidden inside his cell. Believing they have found a way out, he promises Tracy that he will escape, find help, and return to rescue her. However, as Rocco crawls through the narrow passage, he unexpectedly comes face to face with the same monstrous creature John has been feeding all along. Without realizing it, the tunnel he believed would lead to freedom actually leads directly into the creature's lair. As a result, Rocco becomes its next victim, unknowingly sacrificing himself in the process. Time passes until the final day of Lisa's deadline finally arrives. After days of non-stop work, only a small section of the painting remains unfinished. As she removes the last layers of black residue, the horrifying story concealed within the artwork becomes increasingly clear. At that moment, Julia approaches Lisa once again. Unlike before, she appears far more desperate and determined. She warns Lisa that if she completes the restoration, she will suffer the same terrible fate as everyone who came before her. Naturally, Lisa has no idea what Julia is talking about. Realizing she can no longer keep the truth hidden, Julia finally reveals the dark secret her family has protected for centuries. According to Julia, the painting was created in 1493 during a ritual meant to summon a demon named Goran. The ceremony required the body of a dead child as a sacrifice. Ever since then, Emma and Julia have prolonged their lives for centuries by consuming Goran's blood. Julia goes on to explain that the restoration was never intended to prepare the painting for an auction. Its true purpose is to ensure the artwork is completely restored before the blood moon rises later that night. If the crimson moonlight falls upon the fully restored painting, the ancient pact between Emma and Goran will be renewed for another 500 years. While Emma considers eternal life an incredible gift, Julia sees it as an endless curse that has robbed her of a normal existence. She has remained trapped in the same body for centuries, unable to grow older or experience the ordinary life that everyone else takes for granted. Although the story sounds almost impossible to believe, Julia claims she can prove every word is true. She reveals that Madison, Tracy, and Tony were all kidnapped to serve as human sacrifices for the ritual. Julia tells Lisa that if she still refuses to believe her story, she can uncover the truth with her own eyes by exploring the hidden chambers beneath the mansion. Determined to find proof, Lisa decides to investigate for herself, while Julia agrees to keep her mother distracted so she won't be discovered. From a distance, Lisa notices John making his way toward the underground prison. Although fear nearly overwhelms her, she gathers her courage, grabs an object she can use for protection, and quietly follows him. She watches as John disappears through a concealed entrance leading below the mansion. After making sure no one else is nearby, Lisa carefully slips inside after him. Trying not to make the slightest sound, she follows John's path through the underground passages. Unfortunately, she accidentally knocks over several metal objects, creating a loud crash.
John immediately freezes and begins searching for whoever made the noise, forcing Lisa to hide as quickly as she can. While concealed, Lisa notices piles of human remains scattered throughout the chamber. The horrifying sight leaves her frozen with fear, barely daring to breathe in case John hears her. After searching unsuccessfully, John eventually returns to the prison cells. By this point, Tracy is the only prisoner still alive. Terrified, she knows she is almost certainly the next sacrifice. As expected, John arrives to claim her. Tracy fights desperately and struggles with everything she has, but John's strength is far beyond her own. During the struggle, she falls, strikes her head, and loses consciousness. When she finally wakes up, she finds herself suspended above the ancient well, only seconds away from being dropped inside. Just before it's too late, Lisa bursts in and attacks John. After managing to overpower him, she quickly pulls Tracy away from the well. The two immediately flee toward the exit, but while escaping, Tracy accidentally steps on a large nail, badly injuring her foot. Meanwhile, John slowly regains consciousness. Realizing he still must deliver a sacrifice to Goran, he prepares to complete the ritual. What he doesn't realize is that Rocco has already wandered into the monster's lair and become its prey. With no captive left to offer, John ultimately sacrifices himself, willingly giving his own life to Goran in fulfillment of his duty. Elsewhere, Lisa and Tracy finally make it out of the underground prison. Moments later, Marcus unexpectedly appears in front of them. At first, Lisa believes he has arrived to rescue them. Instead, Marcus raises a crossbow and fires a bolt straight into Tracy, killing her instantly. At that moment, Lisa finally understands the truth. Marcus has been working alongside Emma the entire time, and has played a key role in the horrifying rituals carried out beneath the mansion. Marcus forces Lisa back into the room containing the painting. With midnight rapidly approaching, time is running out. Waiting inside are Emma and her loyal servant. At the same time, Dorka, the witch Lisa has only seen inside the painting and through terrifying visions, finally appears in person to participate in the ritual. Having no other choice, Lisa resumes restoring the nearly completed painting. By now, almost the entire image, hidden for centuries, has been revealed. She clearly sees both Emma and Marcus portrayed within the artwork, confirming that they have always been part of the same dark ritual. She also notices Emma holding a manuscript containing the incantation required to renew the pact with Goran. Just as the ceremony is about to begin, Julia suddenly enters carrying a container filled with oil. Without hesitation, she pours it across the painting and threatens to burn it. After spending 500 years trapped inside the body of a child, Julia can no longer endure an existence she considers a never-ending curse rather than a blessing. As midnight draws closer, the tension reaches its breaking point. Emma, who has waited centuries for this exact moment, grows increasingly desperate as precious time slips away while the restoration remains unfinished. Realizing Julia could destroy everything, Emma orders Marcus to kill her with a crossbow. Before Marcus can fire, Lisa throws a corrosive chemical directly into his face, causing him to scream in agony. Furious over Lisa's interference, Emma immediately grabs the crossbow herself and shoots a bolt at Lisa. But amid the chaos, the final moments slip away. The blood moon rises while part of the painting is still incomplete, preventing its crimson light from fully illuminating the artwork. Because the ritual cannot be completed, the ancient pact between Emma and Goran is never renewed. Emma, Dorka, and everyone whose unnatural lives depended on that centuries-old agreement begin aging at an incredible rate before their bodies collapse into dust. Julia is the last to be affected. For a brief moment, she finally sees herself as the adult she was always meant to become. Then, she too crumbles into dust. However, the destruction of Emma's contract creates an even greater danger. As Lisa attempts to flee the mansion, Goran finally emerges from hiding. No longer restrained by any agreement, the creature is completely free and immediately begins hunting for fresh prey. Injured and trapped with nowhere left to escape, Lisa realizes she has only one chance to survive. She rushes back to the painting and finishes restoring the final section that had remained incomplete. Once the artwork is fully revealed beneath the light of the blood moon, Lisa recites the incantation recorded in the manuscript shown within the painting, creating an entirely new pact with Goran. The decision saves her life, but the cost is enormous. Lisa becomes bound to Goran for the next 500 years. The story then skips ahead 30 years. Even after 3 decades, Lisa looks almost identical to the day she first arrived in Sambuchi. Unlike Emma, who relied on ancient rituals and human sacrifices, Lisa adopts a far more modern method. Using advanced technology, she successfully imprisons Goran and begins extracting the creature's blood to preserve her youth. Eventually, Goran's blood becomes far more than Lisa's personal secret to immortality. It is mass-produced and sold exclusively to wealthy clients willing to pay enormous fortunes in exchange for eternal youth. In the end, the terrifying demon that was once feared above all else becomes the foundation of an incredibly profitable enterprise. Goran is reduced to nothing more than a captive, endlessly exploited for his blood to satisfy the rich and powerful in their relentless pursuit of immortality. And that's where the story comes to an end.